fairly heavy topic for the closing session, but I hope I'll keep it interesting for all of you. And believe me, of all the illustrious people you've had walking amongst you over the last few days, those of you who've been here, there's one guy who's been very, very quiet. He's one of the most humble people I've met. You will never see him talk about his achievements, which is actually incredible. Maybe some of you have even had a cup of tea with him without knowing what he's done. And he's really an amazing man. He's a role model. But first I want to show of hands. How many of you have heard of something called Operation Meghdoot? Okay, this is clearly a very enlightened audience, so that was a stupid question. So I'm not going to ask how many of you have heard of Siachen. If you've all heard of Operation Meghdoot, obviously everyone knows what Siachen is. But the topic of this that Alo has given me is Operation Meghdoot, Kargil, and the shifting patterns of terror in Jammu and Kashmir. But I'm going to take the liberty of spending my first 15-20 minutes at least talking about a very special person, okay? And when you see him on stage, you will think, oh my God, I saw this guy earlier today. So first, just a very quick background. I won't spend too long on this. Even though all of you know Siachen and Operation Meghdoot, very quick primer for those who may be a little bit confused. This, as you can see, is Jammu and Kashmir. This is Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is the line of control for those of you who know. The red line here is the line of control. This is, am I audible? You can see what I'm pointing at? Yeah. This is Srinagar, this is Kargil, this is Leh. This whole thing here is Ladakh. This wonderful stretch over here is where India and China are currently facing off. The big military standoff between India and China is happening here. This is Eastern Ladakh. And this beautiful triangle here is the Siachen Glacier. And this point here is where the line of control ends. So until the 80s, there was no clarity on who this territory actually belonged to. Of course, India, all of this is India, basically. It's occupied by Pakistan. But there was a tug of war over who is going to dominate this height. So this beautiful little triangle here, nestled in this strategic tri-junction between Pakistan, India, and China, is the famous Siachen Glacier. It's one of the most hostile, one of the most difficult terrains in the world. It's anywhere between 18 to 22,000 feet high. You can't breathe at that altitude. That's what Siachen is. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of what it looked like just before Operation Meghdoot. Very few people have seen these pictures. Oops, sorry. One of the first pictures taken from the ground in Siachen before Operation Meghdoot. Not a soul in sight, completely desolate, 19,000 feet altitude. Some of the first encampments that the Indian Army put up. This is even before Operation Meghdoot. Now, the next photograph I'm going to show you, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that I generated it with AI. Because there is no photograph of this next thing that I'm going to show you. But the guy you're going to meet today happens to be the first Indian Army officer to jump from a helicopter. Not this photograph, sorry, the next one. This guy, I don't know why he's smiling, because there's nothing to smile about in this photo. Okay, believe me, he's at 22,000 feet. It's absolutely bone-crunchingly cold, and he's about to go, jump from his helicopter onto. This is the embarrassing AI image, and my apologies for it, because the officer could not supply me with a picture of him jumping from a helicopter onto Siachen, and he was very apologetic about that also. Onto a place where no officer had ever set foot before. He was in his 20s. He was a captain at that time, and he had volunteered to do this. This is what it looked like just a few months later. These are the first camps and bunkers and encampments that were placed over there. And I need to keep emphasizing this over and over again, that this is 22,000 feet. How many of you here in the audience, show of hands, have been to Ladakh? So when you went to Leh, you were obviously advised, right, that you needed to spend a day to acclimatize. Ladakh is pineapple pastry. It's nothing compared to this. Like you can do whatever you want in Leh. Here, if you don't spend a while acclimatizing, that it's the end of your life. This is what it looked like. The first vehicle trails by the Indian Army were on terrain of this kind. This is what Siachen looks like from the ground, and this is on a nice day. Usually it's snow-blown and completely desolate. This is when the sun was shining, and it was still minus 20 degrees at this time. Footprints in the snow of soldiers and patrols that were going. The reason I'm showing you all these pictures before I bring my guest on stage is because I want you to see where he operated and where he was the first to actually get there. That's one of the first pictures of him in Siachen. This is the early 1980s. Okay, Operation Meghdoot began in April 1984. So this was around that time, and he will tell you more about these photos in just a moment. That's him there again. Very famous photo. You can't make out who's who in this photo, and I hope he'll throw some light on that. But that's again him in that photo. So these are the only three photos that exist of him in the Siachen Glacier. I asked him repeatedly, I tried to look through the archives, but photography was not only prohibited, but there was no way to take photographs. This is 1984, there were no phones, nobody carried cameras, there were no portable ways in which to do it. Videography and photography was conducted on an official basis for operational work, etc. So this guy is smiling from that helicopter and then standing like ankle deep in that snow is Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Please, sir.
Shiv has the art of making zero into a hero.
See what I mean? Imagine he's no, don't believe what he's saying, because the army saw what he did. It bestowed him with a decoration called the Shaurya Chakra, which is one of India's highest peacetime gallantry awards. So he's a Shaurya Chakra winner. He was a young captain from the Kumaon regiment when this happened. He had his whole life ahead of him, and he has a deep connection with Ladakh, one of the most dangerous places in the world. So welcome, General Kulkarni. Good to see you here again. I saw that glint of familiarity in many people's faces right now. They were like, oh my God, I just had a cup of tea with this guy. I had no idea he jumped from a helicopter onto Siachen. So, that's very much a part of his personality. But I want, I've heard the story, but I want you to tell our friends here about that moment when you were standing on the floorboard of that helicopter. You and the pilot were talking to each other, and I remember it was just snow-blown landscape below him. But the thing is, he was hesitating to jump at first because it was not clear whether that was thin snow and whether it was a ravine or whether there was a crevice below it. And if he had jumped, he would just go right through it. And I think a sack of atta came in handy at that time. Please tell us that story. Atta helped him in Siachen.
Thank you very much, Shiv. All that he does is not very much that I have done. Frankly speaking, it's not much that in the armed forces an individual can do. So please do not get carried away that here's a man who did it. Nothing. So that's the start, because it's
I told
teamwork. Yeah, it's a teamwork, and everybody contributes. And it's just that at that point of time, I happened to be there. And since I was there in 1982, I was there in 1983, and obviously in 1984, when we decided that what we had to do, obviously someone who's been there for such a long time is bound to happen. And before that, of course, we had Shiv telling you all what happened, how the Pakistanis were, what they call it, the cartographic aggression. Because what we have joining the Siachen glacier is the Shaksgam Valley, what you are referring to. And through the Shaksgam Valley comes the road through the Khunjara Pass from China's Xinjiang province, going through Gilgit-Baltistan and goes down to Gwadar. You had General Narasimhan speak in the morning, telling some of you that the Chinese are looking at it from the Bay of Bengal, trying to take as much oil, energy, gas that they can from Myanmar into China. Similarly, the Chinese wanted it from the Arabian Sea also, and therefore the Gwadar port that the Chinese got it from Pakistan, and that is where they are. So they're looking at it from Gwadar, one side, the other side is from the Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, and into through Myanmar into China. And the third, of course, they have pivot over there called the Hambantota of Sri Lanka. So that's the way the Chinese are doing all around. So what were we doing there? And all this was, of course, on and off. You have Musharraf, who later did Kargil, and tell us all about it, that how he, when he was young officer, had been going on the Karakoram highway and going right up to Khunjara Pass and coming back. The Chinese called that the Xinjiang province because Xinjiang means new, whereas before it, it's called the East Turkestan. So keeping all that as a backdrop, Colonel N. Kumar, who was the pioneer of a mountaineer, I am from the same regiment as his, he's from 3 Kumaon, I am from 4 Kumaon. So that is the way the association was, having been trained under him in the high altitude warfare school, and therefore in 81 he had done it, and 82 we did it along with Ladakh Scouts. 83 we again did it exclusively under 4 Kumaon, and in 84 as part of 4 Kumaon and Ladakh Scouts we did. Now the question that he said as to what we trained for it. We were training, I would say, for a long time as to how to go about it. We have to those who've gone to Leh, where Shiv was asking, you all have heard of Khardungla Pass. That the Khardungla Pass is at 18,000 feet. That's quite a height, because you all have, you have to cross Khardungla to get into Partapur, and that is where you have these two rivers. One is the Shok and the other is Nubra. Now Shok flows from where again we all have heard Galwan. That's where the incident took place, is the river Shok, which flows from coming down from Galwan and meets at a point near Khalsa when you are going with Nubra, which originates from Siachen. So from Siachen originates this river Nubra, joins the Shok, and then both the rivers go and join Indus. That's the way it is. So it was important for Pakistan, because Pakistan, now we hear about it in the newspapers, of the Indus Water Treaty. So all these are things that are connected. Why I'm telling you, are giving a brief background as to why, and all these things are important, and why we do all what we are doing quietly. So because of the Indus Water Treaty, the water flowing, all of it which originates from here goes into Indus, and then it flows to Pakistan and goes to Karachi in Sindh. From the same place, from the Tibetan plateau, flows the other rivers which flow into China. So that's the place why China is interested in water, because it is understood that the future wars are going to be fought for water. And it is that reason why Siachen, all of these areas which are great repository of water, have to be defended. Otherwise we will soon lose all of it. And that in 84, and initially Pakistan had wanted to do it. So first they came in 1983, and we were there in 83. We withdrew, they came. And they could not stand up to that deep, very, very severe winter. Severe winter, again Shiv told you all, the temperatures go as low as minus 50 to 60 degrees. The wind blow between 150 to 200 kilometers an hour. So it is the wind chill factor which is very, very difficult. Visibility drops down to, you can't even see 2-3 feet away from you. So visibility is very low. You get headache, you have insomnia, you can't sleep, you can't eat. You have the best of food, unimaginable, the kind of food that you get over there. So with all that, and the Pakistanis had been wanting to come and occupy Siachen in the year of 1984. Now this was absolutely clear that Pakistanis are going to occupy, because Musharraf writes in his book, In the Line of Fire, that India preempted us. So the word that he uses, because he was in their military operation cell, he was later their DMO, and he says that India preempted occupying the Siachen Glacier. They wanted to occupy it. They had decided that their first decision by their GOC was that if it could be occupied on the 1st of March. But since the Pakistanis withdrew in 1983 in the month of November, unable to stay on top of glacier, so they said March would be an extremely difficult month to occupy. Let's do it on the 1st of May. So Pakistanis finally decided that they would occupy the Siachen Glacier on the 1st of May 1984. We were not aware of it, neither of us. Nobody was aware. And the discussions were taking place as to how it could be done. And since we were part of it in 82, 83, then the army commander, General Chibber, he asked me as to, can we do this operation in a little before what we were all doing earlier? So I said, yes, earlier we would be occupying it in the month of June. And we would go in the month of June, July, stay on top till the month of October, and then fall back. Obviously, nobody could stay after that. But then it was decided that we would occupy Siachen Glacier on the 13th of April. Now, the 13th of April seems a very, like here I'm in room number 213, and most people wouldn't want, 13 mein kyun rehta hai karke, but 13 seems very lucky for me. That's something which, and the commander then was very clear that it would be the 13th of April because it's Baisakhi. And Baisakhi is supposed to be a new year in North India, new year, and therefore very auspicious, and we would occupy the Siachen on the 13th of April. Now we didn't know till Musharraf wrote in his book later that they were to occupy on the 1st of May. So anybody who's wanting to occupy such a thing on the 1st of May would be preparing for it at least 2 months in advance, minimum 2 months in advance. So they were already close to the glacier, and from their side it takes exactly 1 day to come on top of Siachen Glacier, occupy Saltoro Ridge, and then occupy the Siachen Glacier. For us, it took us about 7 days to walk, and then we had to establish Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, Camp 5, Camp 6, then Indira Col, then on to the Saltoro Ridge, occupy Bellafondla, occupy Ciela. So it was a huge logistic nightmare to occupy all of it. So since on the 12th of April 1984 came the equipment with which we could wear and occupy Siachen Glacier. So you can well imagine, 13th April in the morning at 5 o'clock, we are supposed to occupy Siachen Glacier, and in the evening of 5 o'clock of 12th of April 1984, equipment from foreign countries land by the Air Force.
I just want to emphasize this point once, because this is a very crucial point that the general is making, and it actually goes to the heart of how, forgive me for using harsh words, but how ill prepared the system was for something like this. They got their high altitude boots and high altitude clothing and high altitude mountaineering equipment and ropes and stuff 2 hours before they took off from the Siachen base camp or in Thois to go to Siachen. 2 hours, which means General Kulkarni and the rest were fully prepared to go without that equipment. Fully prepared. To a place 22,000 feet in the air, they were prepared to go. Please, sir. And tell us about that helicopter thing.
Shiv, I know. Shiv is absolutely right. But why did that happen? Because the Pakistanis had bought the entire equipment that is available in Europe by January of 1984. So when our corps commander, General Hoon, then went to procure the equipment, that is the time he was told that, well, look, there is no equipment available because everything has been bought by Pakistan. So he said, Pakistan bought it. So that was the first hint that we all got, that Pakistanis were on to some mischief, and probably they would be wanting to occupy Siachen Glacier and later on all that. So what Shiv is saying is absolutely right, because after that, then India had to place an order, and then the equipment had to be made and sizes have to be done. Obviously it took time, but fortunately, the 12th of April, 1984, the foreign equipment, all the balaclavas and the jackets and the trousers and the shoes and the socks, everything, including the tents, everything came on the 12th, 13th morning. Now comes the 13th of April, and we were told that it is radio silence. Why the radio silence is very important to you. We have seen what's happened in Lebanon. So this, what's happened in Lebanon is exactly what can happen anywhere else. So we were, for that reason, specifically told, do not open your radio sets, keep mum, stay absolutely shut for 5 days. Because during that period, we would be able to settle down on Siachen, and then we'll open the radio sets. So on the 12th, we had done the recce, it was all okay. 13th April, we went. Just when, now the question that Shiv asked, that Atika Bori. So in the morning, me and my radio operator, who had been with me, he had a big radio set, so that was on his lap. I was sitting next to him. In a helicopter, only 2 could go. The total capacity of the helicopter was 4. 2 passengers, 2 pilots. Pilot and a co-pilot. So total of 4. That's the capacity of the helicopter then. Now it's much, much less. So we were in the first helicopter. We had reached Belafondla, and just when we were hovering over, the pilot told me, Kulkarni, I don't think we can land. You get ready to jump. I said, jump, no problem. But I said, if you jump at this point of time, there are so many crevices, we wouldn't know how hard the snow is. So I suggest I have an Atika Bori right under this thing, because each of the helicopters would to carry some load for the subsequent stay over there. So I said, let me push that and see how hard the surface is. If the surface is hard, I'll jump. If the surface is soft and it goes down, then we may have to look for another place to jump. So he said, no problems at all. So you throw the Atika Bori. So that Atika Bori was thrown, and I could see it was right lying on top only. I told the pilot, no problem. Now the pilot and the passengers can talk to each other to the radio set. So we were all, otherwise it's a very noisy helicopter. You can't hear anybody at that point of time. So since we were talking, he said, is it okay? I said, yeah, perfectly fine. The Atika Bori is on top. That means I can now jump. The crevices over there are as very wide. It could be as wide as this room sometime. And they'll be covered with a very light, thin layer of snow. So it doesn't know. So generally when the helicopters come like this to land, there's a whiteout condition. The snow is thrown up, the pilot cannot see anything. He gets disoriented totally. He just cannot see anything. So, and he's slowly landing. And if he lands in the thin layer of ice, I have seen with my own eyes the entire helicopter going down with the passengers. Huge helicopters, dark, finished. It's all gone. They've just gone. If the crevice is 100 feet, 200 feet, God alone knows, they all just go down, and that's the end. So that was the fear. We didn't want to start with that operation, something like this to happen. So I said, ye karo, ho jayega. So then he said, okay, are you ready to jump? I said, I'm ready to jump. So I jumped. And that was the first, when I jumped, I gave that thumbs up to the pilot. I said, I'm fine. Now you land. So when he was to land, there were other choppers which were flying, wanting to see what is going on. And when they saw that this chopper had landed, it was okay. But before Shiv says anything, the radio operator who was with me, he fell sick within exactly 40 minutes. 40 minutes of landing. His name was Mandal and Havaldar. And he was just sitting quietly like this and sinking. I said, Mandal, kya ho gaya? He was not replying. I said, Arey, Mandal, kya ho gaya? So he was saying, ki, meko kuch samajh mein nahi aa raha hai. I said, okay, don't worry, stay up and about. The next helicopter that comes, I'll send you back. So the next helicopter that came, Mandal, who landed with me, was back. So that was the first casualty that started off on the Siachen Glacier. But slowly and steadily after that, all these, in every helicopter too, we were a total of 30. So now we were left 29. All 29, along with the company commander, Major Sandhu, we landed there. And by about 10:30, the landing was all complete. And the same helicopters were to carry the platoon for Siala, because that was yet another route for Pakistan to enter through Saltoro into Siachen. So there were two passes, Belafondla and Siala. Our responsibility was to occupy Belafondla, and Ladakh's responsibility was to occupy Siala. But by about 10:30, the weather suddenly turned bad. So bad, unbelievably bad, blizzardous. One couldn't see anything. I said, what happened? Suddenly, within about half an hour, everything turned turtle. And that was the start. And for the next 3 days, it was miserable. We lost one boy, and now it was only the third day. We had already lost one boy. And then I discussed with the company commander. I said, what do we do now? He said, kya karega? I said, we have to open the radio set. If we don't open the radio set, every tent, only 2 boys can sleep. I said, they're very small tents. I said, we are about 30 of us. Each one of them are staying in 2. I said, you and me are also sharing one. Now this boy is no more, and 2 more days to pass. I said, I can't have him inside because other boys can't sleep inside. They'll feel very uncomfortable. I said, I can't keep him outside because you never know, the whole body will get covered by morning because of the heavy snowfall, will not know where he is. So it is better we open the radio set and inform the commanders that one boy is no more. It was last night Ramesh thing. He was with me in 83, very good boy. But suddenly high altitude pulmonary or edema, they told me froth aaya or gaya. I said, chalo. Now, since it was the third day, Ramesh dead, this boy no more, and we were still to occupy Belafondla. Okay, because we were dropped short of Belafondla, and Belafondla was yet to be occupied. So we decided that, I told my team, I said, let's go and occupy Belafondla. Now, when the radio sets were opened, we had informed that this boy is no more, and we were now walking onto Belafondla. As soon as we reached Belafondla, what do I see? The Pakistani choppers coming from front. So now the Pakistani choppers over me, and because the height, like you rightly said, 18,000 feet plus, and that's the limit that the helicopters can actually fly. So he's also trying very hard to fly at 18 and 19,000. We are all standing at 18,000, and the pilot and me saw eye to eye. Now it was just the closest. He's come from there. Because the radio sets got opened, immediately the Pakistanis caught on that the Indians are somewhere close by. The location could be found out. They knew Indians are somewhere close by, but they sent the pilot to see, check karo, where are these chaps, Indians over here. And when he saw all of us over there, he took a U-turn, went back. But by then, we had ponked ourselves on Belafondla. By then, we had occupied Siala. And since 1984, till date, they're all on the other side, nowhere near that.
And just to reiterate, again, General Kulkarni goes very fast, on some points which are of crucial value here. And I don't know if all of you heard that. He said it would take an equal Pakistani team 1 day to reach this same place through much simpler terrain, less slopes, etc. Correct me if I'm wrong. It would take an Indian team in excess of 7 days, much more treacherous terrain. It's the windward side, which means more terrible weather, etc. So General Kulkarni, Captain Kulkarni at that time, young man, and his team established the Indian flag in Siachen under those conditions. So I can only imagine what must have been going through that poor Pakistani pilot's mind when he looked into your eyes that day. But there was no time, was there? I mean, once you reached there, and we'll broaden this after this question, but when you talked about losing those 2 men within the first 24 to 48 hours after landing there, that was perhaps the first point in a journey that has made the Indian Army, and this is not said enough, perhaps the world's greatest high altitude military. The greatest. And many of you know me here. I am not the kind of person who does Bharat Mata Ki Jai. I criticize the military when I need to. But the Indian Army is unparalleled when it comes to mountain warfare and high altitude operations. Because what I'm trying to say is, he talked about a young soldier frothing in the mouth and dying in a tent. A soldier from rural India, they're the most hardened guys. They're the healthiest guys, fittest guys. And he died of a pulmonary edema at that high altitude. So just to remind ourselves once again that these guys, the Indian Army, Captain Kulkarni at that time, the Army now, are not at Siachen for a sightseeing tour. They're not there to spend half an hour, take pictures and come back. They're there for 6 months, and not just to exist, but to fight and to defend and to patrol and to climb and to be on your maximum level of human alertness and to run if necessary at that altitude. So it's just a reminder of what Siachen is, because believe me, I've had the privilege of being to Siachen twice as a journalist. It was a picnic for me because I was there for like 20 minutes and then I was back, and I was very thankful to be back, because 20 minutes is all most people can take at that altitude, and the what that altitude does to your health. I want you to talk to us a little bit about that, because I'm going to come to China next, and we're going to do a little bit of a comparison between China and India as far as high altitude warfare is concerned. But what was it like at that time? And what does the weather, very specifically, General Kulkarni, at 18,000, 22,000 feet, what does the weather do to your body, and how did you survive it?
See, you can well imagine the weather is extremely hazardous, difficult, no visibility. You can't see anything. You got to wear your goggles at all times, because otherwise you get snow blindness. You have to cover yourself. You can't touch a mic like this, because your fingers will stick onto it and probably the skin will peel off. So you have to wear the gloves at all times, and breathing is difficult. Eating is very difficult. You can't sleep. Even the morning call is very difficult. There's no water. It's only ice. You have to melt to make it water, and constantly somebody has to have the stuff running on for the water, because within about 10 minutes it'll turn into ice. So even morning call is very difficult. Morning call, sometimes you go to really tie a chap with a rope so that he doesn't go down into a crevice. At all times there are two of us are moving everywhere, because all these kind of difficulties, but then it's a part of training and one gets used to it. But even before Shiv asked me another question, let me tell you about that boy last night, Ramesh, who's no more. He was awarded Kirti Chakra, and he was with me in his family was with me in the investiture ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Those days the bodies weren't sent home. We would do the cremation at the site itself. So once he come to the base camp, all the last rites, everything, it was done, and the family was informed that look, so and so and is no more, and that's what it is. Now, of course, after the Kargil war, all of it is being done. So obviously this boy, when he died and investiture ceremony held, I saw a small young lady who was about 18 or 19 carrying a baby who was about 7 months old, and with her father and father-in-law. Now both father and the father-in-law were in the Kumaon regiment. Both of them were JCOs. One was the Naib Subedar and the other was the Subedar. And this young girl, and she was almost lost, or she probably didn't know also what was happening around, with a small baby in her arm. So I have that memory of this thing. And both of them, I was, of course, to their father, the father-in-law spoke, anytime you have, please get back to us and everything. And then there was Ramesh's brother also. So stuck some conversation, and that was the end. 18 years later, 1/8, I was posted in Delhi, and I get a call from the brother. He says, "Saab pehchana, मैं रमेश का भाई बोल रहा हूँ." I said, हाँ रमेश का भाई बोल रहा हूँ. Very good. I said, क्या कर रहे हो? साहब एक काम है. बोलो रमेश का जो लड़का था वो 4 कुमाऊं में भर्ती होना चाहता है. Now that was something. I said, अच्छा. और उसकी क्योंकि भर्ती होना चाहता है, मैंने कहा अच्छा, बहुत अच्छी बात है. मैंने कहा उसको भेज दो. क्या किया है? साहब उसने 10वीं पास हो गया है, लड़का हट्टा कट्टा है और फौज के लिए बिल्कुल फिट है. मैंने कहा उसकी माँ क्या करती है? वो माँ ने शादी नहीं की है और माँ ने इसको पाला है. अरे मैंने कहा बहुत अच्छी बात है. और माँ ने इजाज़त दे दी इसको आने के लिए फौज में. हाँ, वो भी खुश है कि बाप के रेजिमेंट में जाएगा करके. Of course, we got him enrolled. He joined the army, He also served 20 years and he also retired, and he's back home. But what fascinates, surprises, is very, very motivating also. Here's a lady who didn't marry. She was just about 17 or 18, carrying a baby who was 7 months old. And so many years later, a call comes from the brother to get the son enrolled. And the lady is so happy. And today, of course, whenever she comes in for the functions in the battalion, you find that it's complete. So this kind, what Shiv says, that the Indian Army is by far the best that is there and all that, there is no denying the fact. That is why I said initially that I have done nothing. I am a very small this thing into the entire operation, because these are the kind of men. If you were not to do what you can do, you will feel uneasy, feel very difficult to survive with these kind of men, so motivated, so willing to sacrifice their lives. You don't know. Sometimes you also get amazed. They are the ones who are motivating you to put in your best. They're always there with you. No problems whatsoever. We also suffer snow blindness, chilblain, frostbite, loss of memory, lost so many things. But they will be standing, always laughing, smiling, with a hot cup of tea. It's very difficult to make water. No problem whatsoever. And that is where I say that really, without fail, we have the best soldiers in the world.
And those soldiers were tested very recently, 4 years ago in Galwan, in other parts of eastern Ladakh, and I'm going to come to that now towards the end. If we have some time, I'll open it up to questions. But China is a country that only believes in speaking through force. It doesn't believe in negotiating. It doesn't believe in conversation. And it also, the only thing that China respects is strength. So when the Chinese deployed in such huge numbers in eastern Ladakh, and I'll try and put that map up so we can, oops, sorry, backwards. Yeah. So where it says China, that's the Pangong Lake, and that's eastern Ladakh where the standoff is currently happening. It's the world's largest military standoff. So China is a country that has obviously territorial ambitions. They have claims. It's a complicated issue which we don't have to go into now. But in Ladakh, General Kulkarni, China basically in many ways hit a wall. China is a country that when it begins an operation, it usually is relentless. It will use all manner of strength and strategy in order to get what it wants. For 4 years, China has not got what it wants. And that's because of the Indian Army, right? It is not an ideal situation by any stretch of imagination. It is not ideal at all that the Indian Army has to be deployed in such large numbers in Ladakh, because it basically means even more men and women being deployed in uncomfortable conditions for longer periods of time. It's a larger expense for the country, etc., etc. But the point I wanted to make is that China is not the same as India when it comes to high altitude warfare in the Himalayas, and these 4 years have actually proven that. Now, as a journalist, as a writer who writes about soldiers, I find it distasteful when people compare the dead. Are 20 dead but there 40 died. I don't like those conversations, because soldiers are soldiers. Ultimately, soldiers are following orders of people who obviously can't get their stuff together and get along diplomatically. So it's always the soldiers who finally have to pay the price. So whether it's Indian or Chinese soldiers, they're soldiers. So that's my mantra always when talking about the military. But just one small point that I wanted to make in terms of narrative, and then I'll ask you my final question, is that all of you here are very enlightened persons, and I'm sure you consume the media, you watch TV, you read the newspapers, you're on social media, and I'm sure you are constantly seeing, especially in our political conversations, Chinese incursions onto the Indian side. China has come in, a small group of Chinese soldiers came in 2 kilometers in the context of this standoff. But have you ever heard about Indian soldiers going to the other side? Have you ever heard stories of Indian soldiers doing those same pressure tactics on the Chinese? You'll never hear about them because China doesn't want you to hear about them. the political system will, the political conversation will be about how India is a weak sitting duck country and China just keeps coming in and, you know, and put it, pushing our buttons and making us look helpless and like a damsel in the woods. Let me tell you, and this might get me into a little bit of trouble, but Indian soldier groups do the same thing. They're constantly pushing China's buttons. They're constantly going across and, you know, giving them sleepless nights in different parts of Eastern Ladakh. I cannot report it as a journalist. I cannot even say it. So I'm going to, believe me, get a call about this tomorrow. But all I'm saying is, the next time you see someone saying, "Arey, China andar aa gaya," please say, "But hum bhi to ja rahe hain us side. We're also going that side." It's a game of movements. It's a chess game that's happening right now. And when you zoom down to the border level, each commanding officer, each soldier, like General Kulkarni at that time, they are the smallest warriors in a much larger game. And when it comes to high altitude warfare, the last 4 years have proven that the Chinese are no match for India. They've had to learn, General Kulkarni, and I'll throw this to you, in the last 4 years, what your Indian army has learned since Operation Meghdoot in 1984. And the reason, and an indicator of that is, and again, this is only as a matter of indication, not as a statistic, but for every one Indian army soldier who dies of high altitude sickness or high altitude health conditions, for every one Indian army soldier who perishes at those heights, 15 Chinese die. 15. And this is data that I haven't made up. This is from our observers in Eastern Ladakh, which means that the soldiers that China has pushed to conduct this huge military standoff with India are simply unsuited for high altitude warfare. They've been pushed into a suicide. And there are Chinese soldiers there, and I remember you and I were talking about it, who talk to the Indian soldiers, because now it's frozen, there's no fighting, they're talking to each other. And they're like, we have a one child system now in China. And my parents just want me to come home. I'm their only child, I'm their only son. Chinese soldiers like, what is this hell? I'm at 18,000 feet, I'm the only child, and I want to go home. And Indian parents are like, yeah, just let us know when you're coming back, no worries. So how is India and China different as far as the last 4 years is concerned, and where is that standoff going in your views?
The Siachen has given us that confidence, and that's one of the reasons why we find our troops are fully acclimatized. And you will never find Indian Army chap saying that he does not want to serve on Siachen. He will take pride in saying, I want to be posted to Siachen. Why he wants to be posted? Because that is the test of a soldierly quality. So he wants to be tested. Since 84, we all are there. Almost everybody in the army is going to turn to go and serve 90 days, maybe 100 days, some less, some more. But the Chinese don't have that advantage. And therefore, we found that what they did on the Kailash range or Pangangso Lake and all across, the troops of theirs were not able to withstand this high altitude warfare. Whereas for us, it was a cakewalk. And that is the reason why that we could survive. And even China, as we all know, they believe in what they say, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without a fight. So they will not indulge in a fight. They know that it is not worth it taking up a fight with India, because they must win, and they know they cannot win. So, and these are altitudes, they're very, very inhospitable terrain. It's not easy. Boots on ground matter. And you can't run. You can't, they say that don't be a Gama in the land of Lama. This is a very saying that goes there. And the reason again they say is, Pet mein roti, haath mein soti, chal choti. Because why they say all that is, because your breathing has to synchronize with your stepping. So the way you step and the breathing must synchronize. Only then you won't get tired. And that is very difficult. So that is the reason why this kind of activities, this kind of training, this kind of hardship that we can, all as soldiers in the Indian Army can go about it, the Chinese find it difficult. And primarily because of one child policy, what Shiv is talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so time is up.
But I'm sure there'll be questions, so let's give you a few questions.
Can we do some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, please. I just ask it. Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you could elaborate or shed some light on, especially in a high altitude situation like this, what it really means to hold a post. I mean, if you do, like I have read in Shiv, Aroor, your books about confrontations happening at posts. Now, what would happen, like if there was a confrontation at Siachen at that altitude? Do you fall back? Do you fight till the death? What's the game plan then?
See, the question of falling back doesn't arise because we landed there on the 13th of April 1984 and we are holding on since then. I have had my first confrontation with the Pakistanis on top on the 27th of April 84 and a proper battle for Belafonla on the 23rd of June 1984. And since then there have been battles on Siachen, a number of them, some of them led by Musharraf himself as a brigadier, failed in all attempts, and in one of the attempts that they did, Bana Singh got the Paramveer Chakra because he wanted to occupy a height. So Pakistan in high altitude warfare or in mountain warfare, it's very important. Whoever occupies heights has an edge over those who want to occupy heights. So because, like you said, for every one soldier, 16 of them die there. You virtually require 16 of them to fight one soldier if a soldier is occupying a height. So all these heights along the Saltoro ridgeline are being held by us. And similarly, you found it in Kargil that all these heights had to be reoccupied, and we lost 527 soldiers reoccupying the heights that were held by us earlier. So it's very difficult, and that also we could do because only Indian Army can do. The Pakistanis probably thought they could occupy heights, and since the Indians are occupying heights in Siachen, similarly they will hold heights on Kargil and not let anyone come and occupy. Till they found that the Indian troops were absolutely brave, and Air Force played a huge role, artillery played a huge role in Kargil ops to, keep their heads down and for the infantry to assault. So that was different, but we lost 527. On Siachen, we've lost almost about 900 odd soldiers so far, but most of them we've died because of weather and because of high altitude, not because of fire. Because of fire, I don't think more than 100-150 men would have died since 1984 till date. The government of India spends 5 crores a day to maintain troops on top of Siachen. That's the kind of expenditure that is there, and the boys know it, and that is what makes them tough, strong, strengthened, and almost impossible for them to get destroyed.
5 crores a day adjusted for inflation for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. So when you go to battle, you are ready to kind of give up your life. You have that kind of a frame of mind. You're ready to take the bullet. But when you go to a place like this, you are not even sure whether you would survive 24 hours. And yet you take that grit. And this is, you're talking about 40 years before, before this, 2024. So at that time, even equipments were not as modern as they are right now. Yet, when you take that kind of a call, what kind of a mental build-up do you have, and how do you prepare yourself mentally? Can you throw some light on that, please?
Frankly speaking, it's part of our training here. I never ever thought that we are going to be doing this and that. For 20 years, we were all quiet. We didn't even speak about anything on Siachen. I never ever spoke on it at all. So I don't think we were gear up. We knew we had to train ourselves. We knew we had to serve at 18 and 20,000 feet. There are various stages of acclimatization. 6 days if you have to go up to 9,000, 12, 14 days if you have to go beyond 14,000, yet another 3 days or add on. So everybody is taught, how to walk, how to talk, how much to eat, how to eat, what is to be done, how to take care of the bodies. You can't touch iron, because any of these metallic pieces, because your hands will peel off. How wearing of gloves, duties to be done. A small example. We have time, 1 minute, or is it? No.
They're scared to stop you,
So we had this boy, yet another one by the name of Chanchal. So he died on the 23rd of June 84 when the Pakis attacked. And he was at the post at about 3:45 in the morning. Chap came running to me. He said, "Sahab, dushman." I said, "Dushman? कहाँ से आ सकता है दुश्मन?" He said, "नहीं साहब, दुश्मन." I said, "Okay, सबको बोलो अपना अपना मोर्चा पकड़ेंगे." Now what morcha we had just the previous day dug up along the snow, soft snow, and we each had to occupy. Now this boy at about 3:30 in the morning, he was on top of the Bila Fondla. So when you're on top, he saw in the morning that there's some movement. Now men would obviously be wearing something different. They were not wearing whites, so they were wearing black. So he could spot some harkat over there. Now he was about 300 meters standing on top, watching all of it, and he passed on the message. He said, "Saab ko batao, dushman." So he came and told me, "Sab dushman." I said, "Get into the stand to, and we'll all fight for it now. No problem." Now when he said dushman, and we were all to go and occupy our trenches, first bullet that was fired by the Pakistanis who were observing, they saw that this boy has alerted the post and obviously got it on his head. And the first hit, and he was down there. Now it was all red, and white snow and blood all over. Now those 300 meters for the Pakistanis to climb up is not easy, because then your head down and you're climbing up and we are looking down. And there, of course, most of them died there. But this boy, Chanchal, when he died, and for whom I must, thank him, because he saved all of us being able to detect the enemy coming up. One of those days, a fortnight before, in one of the blizzardous weather, I was looking around. I said, "Yeah, where are the boys? I can't see anybody on the post. Where are they?" So some small tent, what you saw, that little everywhere. So in total anger and disgust and frustration, I kicked a mound hard enough, cursing, "Ma, behan ka, gali, sab gali." I said, "Where the hell are you on?" And what do I see? Chanchal in it. I said, "Chanchal, tu kya kar raha hai idhar?" So Chanchal said, "Sahab, मेरे को नींद आ गया." He was sitting there, and since it was snowing heavily, he couldn't see anything, and he just lost his way. He was there. He covered himself with a poncho, and since he was covered with poncho and heavy snowfall, almost 2 feet of snow on top of him, inside he was very safe and tucked in. You create a space which creates heat. So he was very happy, and I really gave him a solid kick, to be honest with you. And then when he came out for my own company, good boy, I said, "Chanchal, aise nahi karna hai, dhyan dena hai," and all that little ML. And same boy, on the 23rd of June, in the Pakis weather, he was absolutely alert. He was decorated with Shaurya Chakra, and for his alertness, and the other boys, one of them got hurt in his arm, the other on his feet, and things of those kind. But look at that, it happens. So it's just a question, that naam, namak, nishan, the Jos, Jaspa, Junoon, all that emotional blackmailing of the soldiers, at all time telling them, "Come on, it's regiment, izzat," all that counts. And there you are. It doesn't matter. I don't think this thought of a death has ever struck anyone कि मर जाएगा, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
Okay, good. So I think we have time for 2 more questions.
So is it okay if I ask a question?
Please.
Yeah, it's quite sensitive topic that you brought up. So basically, we keep hearing that Chinese invaded, Pakistan invaded, so we fought and we won. But we always felt we have been quite reactive. But today is the first time I got to know that we also do this thing. I felt so proud of it. Why can't we pass this message to the citizens? We feel proud about it, if we are proactive and also we are fighting, protecting our nation proactively.
So I literally tell these stories through my book. So I hope more people will read
So
those
I'll
stories.
follow you from now on.
But I can tell you that you're 100% correct. What you basically said goes to the heart of why I started writing these books, the India's Most Fearless books, because these operations are unknown. We get to see gallantry medals and awards that happen on Republic Day or Independence Day, and then people just forget what's happened. But people like then Captain Kulkarni and others. And you thought I was lying about how humble he is. You've seen him, right? He's like, no, it's teamwork. I didn't do anything. Nothing happened. No big deal. No fear. That's how real heroes are. So they don't mind if their stories are not told. They don't see it as the country being unfair. I have not met a single soldier who feels disenchanted by the fact that what he or she did is not more well known among the citizens. I feel your frustration. You've just heard about Siachen. It happened 40 years ago. Most people have no idea what Operation Meghdoot is. Nobody knows what Ramesh looks like. Nobody knows what Chanchal looks like. Nobody has a picture. I'm sure even Google doesn't have their pictures. But these were people who, went up and took control of a piece of land where nobody should, in their right minds, should have to go. So absolutely, I completely agree with you. These stories need to be told. Siachen was a model operation of India doing everything right, anticipating, preempting, deploying, commanding, everything right. Everything worked absolutely beautifully. And just as a small point, because General Kulkarni talked about how they were ordered to go in with radio silence, switch off all your equipment, go. I have always wondered what it must have been like for Indian parents. Indian parents with their young children at those heights with absolutely no communication. Of course, now I have friends in Siachen who I can make video calls to. But I'm just saying, at that time, imagine being so completely cut off. Parents would not be able to know about what was happening with their people for months together. What did your parents, for example, say when you said you're going to jump from a helicopter into Siachen?
You know what Shiv is talking about? Thank God there were no mobiles there. So that's a very big boon that we didn't have mobile. And obviously my parents didn't know. I was a bachelor, so it was good fun. And they really got to know when I came down, and I told them I've come back on chutti, and they said, wow, very nice, that big beard, you saw that and everything. So they were quite, are you in the army? So I said, of course. So I said, I've come down because I have to go to Germany. Huh? They were thrilled. Were you going to Germany? I said, yeah. You know what? It so happened that Mrs. Gandhi was being shown around because 1984 Blue Star was also on. And just a week before, Squadron leader Rakesh Sharma had gone on, the space mission, where he had told Mrs. Gandhi, when she asked कि हिंदुस्तान कैसे देखता है, so he said सारे जहाँ से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. So there were incidents like this happening, space, Blue Star. So Mrs. Gandhi, all this, and Mrs. Gandhi had probably told the army commander, look, whatever you're doing, see that it doesn't sort of, go beyond a certain threshold. So they said, no problem. So she was brought and being shown what and where our troops are on Siachen. So when she was nearing this thing, again, it turned a total whiteout, and she couldn't see anything other than that national flag that was flying, because that became color. The saffron color, the green color that was visible from a distance. So she asked, that's our post? She was told, yeah, वो अपना post है, कौन है? So she was told, नाम बताया, कुलकर्णी है, जो whatever. And then Pushkar Chand was my task force commander. He called me up, he said, you नीचे आ. Why should I come down? मैं ऊपर बैठा हूँ. He said, नहीं तू नीचे आ. मैंने कहा, the conversation ended. Next day he called me up, where are you? I said, I'm on Bellafondla. He said, I told you नीचे आ. I said, क्यों नीचे आऊँ? Again you will tell me ऊपर जा. So नीचे आओ, ऊपर जाओ. I said, I'm very happy you're on top. Why do you want me to come down? He said, नहीं नीचे आ. There is something for you. You have to go. Mrs. Gandhi, because she saw that this young officer was there, gave me a 15-day trip. And I went to Germany, Switzerland, Italy, France, and Austria. And she said, usko 15 din ke liye bhejo. So I went for a 15-day trip. That was the first time my parents saw me, having come to Delhi. And from there I was being shown around. Of course, as part of the user team and things of those kind. But then it is like that. And before we end, and she shows the time, all this is a blessing in disguise. I can't hear at all. If you had asked me that question, I would have asked him, kya bola karke? Because I have no hearing on my right ear. I have a deep cut. Everything is all gone. from the time of Major. And I'm surprised they made me a Lieutenant General, probably because I don't hear.
Jai Hind, sir. Bande Mataram. Sir, sir, when we talked about in availability of equipment in before 10 years, after 10 years, means before 2014, after 2014. So, what are the availability of those equipment in Indian Army?
I think he's talking about whether the equipment issues have been sorted out. It's not a question of 2014. I think 1984 was a big lesson as far as availability of equipment was concerned, and after that, by the early 90s, equipment had been sorted out. There's never been a problem. There have been some issues with sourcing, etc., but operations have never suffered because of it, including quality. And the good news now is that India, which was totally dependent on Czech Republic and Switzerland and Sweden and Finland for high altitude equipment, makes most of it here by ourselves now.
Sorry, we are not taking any more questions. I know this can go on and on and on. Even I am interested, but we really have to call it a day. So.